Let's be honest, we all lie. It's just a part of being human, right? A little social tool we use for all sorts of reasons. But what happens when lying isn't a choice anymore? What happens when it becomes a compulsion? Today, we're going to dive deep into the really complex and fascinating world of pathological lying. I mean, of course you have. We all have. Telling your friend their new haircut is amazing when it's just okay. Or saying you're swamped with work to get out of plans you really don't want to go to. These little fibs they're how we get by in our social lives. But not all lies are created equal. You've got your harmless white lies over here, then there are gray lies. These are a bit more about you, like blaming traffic when you know you overslept. And then you've got real lies, the kind that are meant to be malicious and can cause some serious damage. It's super important to get these categories straight because what we're talking about today, well, it's on a whole other level. Okay, so let's get right into it. What exactly is pathological lying, and what makes it so different from the everyday fibs we all tell? This right here is the biggest difference. We're stepping away from lies that have a clear purpose, even if it's a bad one, and into a world where the lying itself seems to be the entire point. It's constant, the stories are incredibly detailed, and honestly, to anyone on the outside, it's just completely baffling. And here we go, here's the formal definition. The fancy term is Pseudologia Fantastica. Now, the part of this that you really got to pay attention to is at the end, without any clear personal gain. This is the key. This is what separates a pathological liar from someone who's just a regular self-serving liar. And this breaks it down perfectly. For most of us, a lie is a means to an end. You lie to get something you want or to dodge something you don't. But for a pathological liar, the drive is totally internal. It's a compulsion. And what's wild is that their lies often blow up in their faces and cause them actual harm, but they just can't seem to stop. So here are a few key things you should know. This behavior usually kicks off in the teenage years. And interestingly, it's not listed as its own official diagnosis in the DSM-5. That's kind of the big book of mental health disorders. But, and this is a big but, psychiatrists absolutely see it as a very real and serious condition. What's so tricky is that the person telling the lies, they might actually believe what they're saying in the moment. Or they might only fess up to the truth when they're totally backed into a corner. All right, so if this is a real thing, how do you even spot it? What are the actual behaviors that experts are looking for? Let's break down some of the signs. So, experts look for these four main things. First, the lying is just excessive. They spin these huge, fantastical stories, and then they have to create even more lies to prop up the first ones. Second, and this is the part that's so hard to wrap your head around, there's no clear external reason for it. The gain is all internal. Maybe it's a way to get attention or feel important, or maybe just to build a more exciting reality for themselves to cope with low self-esteem. It's a coping mechanism, even if it's a destructive one. Third, this isn't a one-time thing. It's a chronic, long-term pattern. And last, it's often seen as its own condition, not just a side effect of something else. Okay, beyond those general behaviors, what are some of the actual things you might hear in their stories that could be a red flag? What does it sound like? Well, here are three big ones. First, contradictions. It is really, really hard to keep a tangled web of lies straight, and sooner or later, they're going to slip up. Second, research shows they tend to sprinkle in all these little details that are impossible for you to ever check or confirm. And third, the stories themselves are almost always over-the-top dramatic. They're often the hero or the victim in these incredibly high-stakes, wild situations. Listening to this, it might sound kind of entertaining from a distance. But for the person actually living this way, the reality is anything but. The consequences are really severe and just deeply damaging. And that's the thing that's so crucial to understand. This isn't just about fooling other people. This is a self-destructive behavior. The person telling the lies is almost always the one who suffers the most from the fallout. And this is the real human cost. I mean, trust is the bedrock of any relationship, right? And when that's gone, everything just crumbles. They can lose their jobs, their friends, their family connections. It's an incredibly isolating condition to live with. This quote here really, really hits home. Just think about that for a second. Out of everything you are, everything you've accomplished, the one thing people remember about you is that you can't be trusted. That's just a tragic place to be. So what if you think someone in your life is dealing with this? It can feel so frustrating, maybe even hopeless, but there are constructive ways you can respond. The best way forward is therapy, but there's a huge catch-22, right? To get better, you have to be honest with your therapist. It's a massive challenge, for sure. But with the right professional, it is possible to get to the root of the compulsion and learn how to manage it. So what about you? What can you do? Here are 3 really crucial steps. First, stay calm. Getting angry just makes them more defensive and usually leads to even more lies. Staying calm is your best tool. Second, gently step away from the lie. You don't have to become a detective and prove it's false. Just stop giving the behavior a stage. You could say something simple like, that story doesn't quite line up for me, and then just change the subject. And finally, if this is someone you care about, think about suggesting help. This is tricky. Instead of saying you're a liar, try coming from a place of concern. Like, hey, I've noticed you seem really stressed lately and I'm worried about you. Have you ever thought about talking to someone? You want to focus on their pain, not their lies. And really, that question gets to the heart of this whole thing. It is a deeply complex problem that takes a ton of patience, really firm boundaries, and a lot of compassion. It makes us ask, how can we build a bridge of trust to someone who seems absolutely compelled to burn it down every single time?